Evening and welcome once again to Gaming Under the Influence. I'm Mike here with Alex, coming from GreenDragonCVR in Woodbridge to talk about video games. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm great. I just played a Kojima game, watched a trailer for a Kojima game.
Oh, yeah.
Hot
Kojima,
after,
man.
You know, just coming off of like 6 Miyazaki games.
Yeah.
So I'm in a good place when it comes to games. And I got a bunch more that I want to play. You know, that state of play was something for the fact that we got to see the 10-minute long.
It's funny you say that, man, because like we feel like there's been so many periods where we're like chasing new games and we run out of stuff to play, and now it feels like we've kind of dive into like this backlog of
that's exactly
what
right.
we're gonna call essential games that like must play games, you know?
Yeah, man, I think so. I think I had something of an epiphany in the past couple of months. You know, it
kind of hit us both at the same time. We both kind of like fell into Souls games, and we're just like, "Oh, this is great! Like, I don't want to play anything new. I'm just gonna play this."
That's right. Yeah,
Demon Souls
for me,
or Dark Souls.
It was the incredibly terrible. I want to swear so bad right now, but I'm not going to. The incredibly bad Lords of the Fallen. I cannot tell you how bad it is. Just a heap of fecal matter. It's awful. It's
for
terrible.
Weeks, you were telling me about it.
Yeah, it's awful. I still want to just complain about it so much. It's awful. Yeah. But after that, and after being disappointed by parts of Alan Wake 2, such that I can't even imagine finishing it, I decided to just go back to Souls, you know, and after thoroughly enjoying that and all of the other Miyazaki games that he published since then, and directed since then, I'm thinking to myself, you know, these games are different, man. Yeah. Not only his games, of course. There are other people like him.
Also Kojima, like we were saying with Death Stranding.
That's right.
And everything else he's made before that.
Miyazaki is a member of a certain class of makers of games that they're different than other people who make games too. You know? We talked about before how I don't think all games are the same. We refer to these incredibly different works as similar because they are expressed using the same matter, as though we were to call a textbook and a novel the same because they're written on paper, right? It doesn't make sense. But somehow we capture, you know, Kojima and Miyazaki games with Call of Duty and Sea of Thieves, right? They're not the same thing.
Not the same thing.
They're doing different things. But without getting too deep into that, we can at least acknowledge that they're different. And the chief cause of the difference, you know, watching this trailer, playing these games, got me thinking is the fact that these games are, in the first place, there's two conditions, I think. And the first one is that they're made by an author. They have an author. They're not committee-based games like an Ubisoft kind of Assassin's Creed or something like that. There's a clear person in charge.
It is somebody's
with
idea.
The idea. That's right.
Making decisions, you know?
It's like conventional, maybe classically made art. It emerges from the mind of an author. Yeah. You know, and of course there's other people involved, like when somebody's making a cathedral. You know, there is other, believe it or not, people have done things like this before, right? Yeah. Made art together. People are like, oh my God, but the difference is games are made collectively. Like nobody's ever in the past 2,000 year history of mankind figured that out, right? People talking about this kind of thing. And I think just like in those cases where you're building a giant building, somebody's idea is the framework for the work of everybody else. That's the artist involved. Right. And the fact that there is such a person, I think, is required for the work to be in the first place, kind of an integrous, like complete and logical whole, you know, for it to have a life of its own and be a complete creature. And I think the reason for this, man, is, you know, if I were to ask you, like, what is Halo? Where is it? You know, what literally, like, I don't mean like it's a game, like, you know, Bungie sold Halo. Yep. What did they sell? What is it? Like, what is it?
Yeah. What would you say they bought?
Is it a name and a bunch of images? Like, what is it? Yeah. You know, what is Halo? What is the work? What is the artwork? Where is it? You know, maybe that's a better question. And it's not in something that I can give you, even if I wanted to, right?
A USB stick that they handed over to.
It's not the name. It's not a series of images, right? Like when you make something, fundamentally what occurs is that there's a person who conceives something in their mind. Yeah. You know, it doesn't pop out of your hand like you know, like a polyp, right? It's a concept. The same way you think of numbers or philosophical ideas. You conceive of something, and then it's expressed in matter. And when you're making a game, of course, hundreds of people are involved, just like when somebody's making a cathedral.
But that's why you're a game director, because you're
that's why your job is either you're the concept guy or the director or whatever. Depends on the actual individual case, because in some cases the producer has a lot of influence, and you know, depends on the role. But you know, whatever title we put on the person, just like, you know, in the case of these medieval cathedral builders, there's a guy who devises the concept, and everybody else is implementing his idea, and that's the sense in which he is the author. The other people are like the builders of the concrete and the making of the cathedral, right? Even the guy making the art, ultimately his job is as an instrument of the other person.
It's to express it through other
This is not a painting, it's a game. You're in service to the concept that guy has devised, right? That's why it's Kojima's game and not this guy's game.
Right.
You know? That's why there's a true hierarchy between the members of the production of the game, right? So I think you need that for the game to be good, because in the first place, the game is nothing other than an idea in the mind of the artist. Before it finds expression in the world, before it can live outside that in something that you can touch and play and see, before some guy can say, oh, I'm going to draw a picture of it, it's conceived. And if there's nothing like that, if there's just a bunch of notes and a team of teenagers making it, it's nothing. And people will be able to tell it's nothing. It's like, people will say things like, well, it seems like this was made by different people. Yeah, because it was, man. It was, for sure. Obviously, everything is always made by different people, but if it lacks a concept to unify these different elements, then obviously it's just going to be disparate parts, like marbles in a bag shaking around, right? It's not going to be a coherent whole. So in the first place, I think games like Kojima games like Death Stranding especially, games like Miyazaki games, you know, Kojima's talking about how there's nothing he doesn't touch in his games. Other people are doing it, people are making the music, this and that, but he's the one who conceives and implements these things and says, no, this is not an appropriate expression of my concept.
He's got his hands in everything because, again, like you said, it's his ultimate vision. He needs to approve, or you know, like. And
Miyazaki talks about how he builds bosses with his team, and he says he gives the artist a set of ideas and keywords and stuff like that, and people will try to build some visual expression of that and come back, and he's like, no, this is too gross. It's not what I was. It's not what we were doing here. Get it something else, right? Incidentally, that's something that Blue Point ignored when they made their game. But we can get into that perhaps later on. You know, so integral to making something good and different than other things is the fact that there's a creative personality in charge, an author of the idea, because the work at the end of the day, that's what Halo is, that's what Dark Souls is, that's what anything else is. It's a concept in the mind of somebody, and that's not the kind of thing you can transmit.
No,
you know?
It's funny you mentioned Halo, because Infinite had a historically bad development cycle with, I think, multiple directors, creative directors, and that just serves to show the example. It's one of the worst Halo games, like worst acclaimed Halo game. You know what I mean? It was terrible. Who the hell likes it?
But it didn't even have somebody in charge of it as a project, never mind as a franchise, right? It's not possible. What else could it be? It's a committee. That's the definition of a committee game.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you know,
not one single person in charge steering the ship, you know, like the way it should be. But
it's important to emphasize that something always needs to be the expression of an idea in the mind of an artist, right? And because you're making a work of art, you know, your concept is of, its content is of something irreducibly singular, something concrete. That's why I can't give it to you. It's not like 2 + 2 is 4. You can know it. Some guy 1,000 years can too. We can. It's not a universal like that. It's a singular, right? That's the real interesting character of the artistic idea. It's both an idea, but it's a concrete, like it's of an individual thing, you know? That's the root reason I think we can always say, even if somebody manages to make something different that's good, it's not the same thing.
No.
It's not still Halo, if Halo meant anything before. It's not, right?
Absolutely not.
So that's why I think like games like Kojima games, when you look at them next to other stuff we saw trailers for the other day, it stands out for that reason, man. Unlike most of those games, it does have authorial integrity, you know? And in the second place, you know, I think the author has to not be an idiot. The guy has to have an idea that's worth expressing, because we can think of many cases where there is somebody in charge, all right, but
the outcome was not great.
Their dummies, their idea is not worth expressing, right? Like Cliff Bleszinski's Lawbreakers, in my opinion, like all of the modern God of War games. Since
I agree with
David Jaff is gone, I don't think those games were quite as good as the Devil May Cries of the time either, but they were good games with solid ideas. I do like them, and I think that they've been utterly ruined by Cory Barlog and whoever made the, you know, I don't think that those
unpopular opinion, but yes, I agree.
Yeah, but heroin's popular, so you know, doesn't mean anything, right?
Last of Us.
Obviously. That's another one, you know, where I'm not as invested in that, but I definitely agree that, you know, it's a goofy thing. Metal Gear, of course, after the departure of Kojima, Final Fantasy, survived. The difference between, even if you like 16, it's very different than the ones made before, because it's literally been developed by a different developer. Like, it's not Creative Business Unit 3 is the MMORPG developer within Square. It's not the Creative Business Unit 1 that's been developing Final Fantasy since time immemorial. Different people, right?
That's right.
So I don't know, man. I think that's what separates the best games from the ones that are less good. And of course, all of this begs the question, who are these authors and which developers do they work for, what games have they made, and of course we've alluded so far to guys like Miyazaki and Kojima,
of course,
who anybody can guess at. Probably anybody, even if you don't know us, but if you were asking our opinion, that's at the top of the list. But I have a fairly lengthy list, probably 20 people on it or so.
Yep.
That we can talk about in a second part to this video.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you say about that?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
It's more like a preface, like what theoretically makes something stand out. What makes it possible for it to be, part of the video game canon, like an essential work that I think people will talk about in 100 years.
Yeah, down the road.
Essential work of literature in this medium. The way that Don Quixote or the Divine Comedy are referred to as the great works of Western literature. What sets them apart? This is the kind of thing, right? And the same kind of thing analogously here, both a singular author with creative control and the fact that he is not an idiot. He has a good idea to express. Yeah. And we'll talk more about who those figures are. I'm sure you're going to be surprised by our list and perhaps hear people you've never encountered before.
Yeah, definitely.
Tune back in. Thank you guys very much.